Hello there. Last week we did the Gospel of Luke, chapter 8, which had Jesus doing miracles of various kinds, healing people. And today we're on chapter 9. Jesus now called the 12 and gave them authority and power to deal with all the demons and cure diseases. He commissioned them to preach the news of God's kingdom and heal the sick. He said, "Don't load yourselves up with equipment. Keep it simple. You are the equipment. And no luxurians. Get a modest place and be content there until you leave. If you're not welcomed, leave town. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and move on." Commissioned, they left. They traveled from town to town, telling the latest news of God, the message, and curing people everywhere they went. Herod, the ruler, heard of these goings-on and didn't know what to think. There were people saying John had come back from the dead. Others, that Elijah had appeared, also from the dead. Still others, that some prophet of long ago had shown up. And Herod said, "But I killed John, took off his head. So who is this that I keep hearing about?" Curious, Herod looked for a chance to see him in action and would keep looking. The apostles returned and reported to Jesus on what they had done. Then Jesus took them away by themselves near the town called Bethsaida. By themselves. But the crowds got wind of it and followed. Jesus graciously welcomed them and talked to them about the kingdom of God, and those who needed healing he healed. As the day declined, the 12 said, "Hey, dismiss the crowd so they can go to the farms or villages around here and get a room for the night and a bite to eat. We're out in the middle of nowhere here. You feed them," Jesus said. And they said, "We couldn't scrape up more than 5 loaves of bread and a couple of fish, unless, of course, you want us to go to town ourselves and buy food for everybody," possibly to use the considerable means that the female disciples had been using to support them. There were more than 5,000 people in the crowd. But Jesus went ahead and directed his disciples. Sit them down in groups, up about 50. They did what he said, and soon had everyone seated. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, lifted his face to heaven in prayer, blessed, broke, and gave the bread and the fish to the disciples to hand out to the crowd. After the people had eaten their fill, 12 baskets of leftovers were gathered up. Don't run from suffering. One time, when Jesus was off praying by himself, his disciples nearby, by himself, he asked them, "What are the crowds saying about me, about who I am?" And they said, "John the Baptizer. Others say Elijah. Still others say that one of the prophets from long ago has come back." Jesus then asked, "And you? What are you saying about me? Who am I?" And Peter answered, "The Messiah of God." Jesus then warned them to keep it quiet They were to tell no one what Peter had said. He went on warning them. It is necessary that the Son of Man proceed to an ordeal of suffering, be tried and found guilty by the religious leaders, high priests, and religion scholars, be killed, and on the third day be raised up alive. Then he told them what they could expect for themselves. Anyone who intends to come with me has to let me lead. You're not in the driver's seat. I am. Don't run from suffering. Embrace it. Follow me, and I'll show you how. Self-help is no help at all. Self-sacrifice is the way. My way. To find yourself, your true self. What good would it do to get everything you want and lose you, the real you? If any of you is embarrassed with me and the way I'm leading you, know that the Son of Man will be far more embarrassed with you when he arrives in all his splendor, in company with the Father and the holy angels. This isn't, you realize, pie in the sky by and by. Some who have taken their stand right here are going to see it happen, see with their own eyes the kingdom of God. About 8 days after saying this, Jesus climbed the mountain to pray, taking Peter, John, and James along. Some have taken their stand right here. While Jesus was in prayer, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became blinding white. At once, 2 men were there with him. They turned out to be Moses and Elijah. What a glorious appearance they made. They talked over Jesus' exodus and the one Jesus was about to complete in Jerusalem. Meanwhile, Peter and those with him were slumped over in sleep. When they came to, rubbing their eyes, they saw Jesus in his glory and the 2 men standing with him. When Moses and Elijah left, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, this is a great moment. Let's build 3 memorials, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He was blurting this out without really thinking. While he was babbling on like this, a light, radiant cloud enveloped him. As they found themselves buried in the cloud, they became deeply aware of God. And then there was a voice in the cloud. "This is my Son, the chosen. Listen to him." When the sound of the voice died away, they saw Jesus there alone. They were speechless. And they continued speechless, said not one thing to anyone during those days of what they had seen. Only written later in stories like this, I imagine. When they came down off the mountain the next day, a big crowd was there to meet them. A man called out from out of the crowd, "Please, please, teacher, take a look at my son. He's my only child. Often a spirit seizes him. Suddenly he's screaming, thrown into convulsions, his mouth foaming, and then it beats him black and blue before it leaves. I asked your disciples to deliver him, but they couldn't. guess he kept trying. Wouldn't give up. Jesus said to him, "What a generation. No sense of God. No focus to your lives. How many times do I have to go over these things? How much longer do I have to put up with this? Bring your son here." While he was coming, the demon slammed the son to the ground and threw him into convulsions. Jesus stepped in, ordered the vile spirit gone, healed the boy, and handed him back to his father. They all shook their heads in wonder, astonished at God's greatness, God's majestic greatness. Your business is life. While they continued to stand around exclaiming over all the things he was doing, Jesus said to his disciples, "Treasure and ponder these next words. The Son of Man is about to be betrayed into human hands." They didn't get what he was saying. It was like he was speaking a foreign language and they couldn't make heads or tails of it. But they were embarrassed to ask him what he meant now. So they started arguing over which of them would be the most famous. Yeah, when Jesus realized how much this mattered to them, he brought a child to his side. "Whoever accepts this child, as if the child were me, accepts me," he said. "And whoever accepts me, accepts the one who sent me." You become great by accepting, not by asserting. Your spirit, not your size, makes the difference. John spoke up. "Hey, Master, we saw a man using your name to expel demons, and we stopped him because he wasn't of our group." And Jesus said, "Yeah, don't stop him. If he's not an enemy, he's an ally." That's the response he gave this time. When it came close to the time for his ascension, kind of a season, he gathered up his courage, Jesus, and steeled himself for the journey to Jerusalem. He sent messengers on ahead. Those messengers came to a Samaritan village to make arrangements for his hospitality. Ah, Samaritan hospitality. But when the Samaritans learned that his destination was Jerusalem, they refused hospitality. My understanding from biblical history teaching is that this is something along the lines of what the Jewish Jews, rather than the Samaritan Jews, expected from Samaritans. They refused Jesus' hospitality. When the disciples James and John learned of it, they said, "Master, do you want us to call a bolt of lightning down out of the sky and incinerate them, these inhospitable Samaritans?" And Jesus turned on them. "Of course not. Ugh." And they traveled on to another village. On the road, someone asked if he could go along with the rest of Jesus' followers. "I'll go with you wherever," he said. Unnamed fellow here. Jesus was curt. "Are you ready to rough it? We're not staying in the best inns, you know. I mean, just the other day, I had like 5,000 people with us, and we didn't find them any place to stay. We only gave them food." All right, obviously I'm inserting my own commentary here, but that just strikes me for the first time. "We're not staying in the best inns, you know." Jesus said to another, "Hey, follow me." And the person said, "Certainly, But first, excuse me for a couple of days, please. I have to make arrangements for my father's funeral. Jesus refused. First things first. Your business is life, not death, and life is urgent. Announce God's kingdom. Then another person said to Jesus, I'm ready to follow you, Master, but first excuse me while I get things straightened out at home. And Jesus said, no procrastination, no backward looks. You can't put God's kingdom off till tomorrow. Seize the day. Seize the day. Okay, that's the end of the chapter, but I can't end this recording without talking about it some more. Seize the day. I hadn't rereading this. I'm surprised that it's like this translator, Eugene Peterson, and in this paraphrase actually puts the word "seize the day" in the Bible. Yeah, that is something that I don't know what things were like back then enough to be able to make any firm conclusions for other folks, but let's just say that when Jesus tells someone to forget about making arrangements for their father's funeral and to come along and follow him now and announce God's kingdom, I just can't help but think that our current age in North America, anyway, in the Western world in general, and particularly in the States, and I think in Canada, we already have a lot of seize the day mentality kind of baked into our culture of we put work ahead of a lot of other things. We prioritize productivity and that kind of thing and getting our missions done and stuff like that. And so delaying grief, delaying mourning, a mourning period, or skipping a mourning period, or just skipping, not making time for funerals, seems like more of the typical thing that we would do, where we err on the side of seizing the day too much rather than giving ourselves time to grieve and to heal. So I just wanted to say that for anyone who scratches their head when they hear these words. I know that there are certainly times in life where things have to be delayed, and I'm sure a lot of the time it's never an easy decision to know exactly how much you should take time and how much you need to keep yourself busy. And so all I can say is, God, give us wisdom.